You were all bamboozled, you were all lied to, you were all fed straight up propaganda that I had absolutely no part in perpetuating. What? You think Death is the knight? Death? Are you for real? Get that edgelord out of my face. Claws solos. You can't expect me to believe that Death is the knight when she couldn't even find her way back home after getting lost where the forest would grow. You think her sword looks like a bat? Please, since when do bats have sharp edges, huh? Since when? This is totally a valid argument. Why are you laughing at me? I'm sorry, did you just say what about Carol now? Carol? Are you out of your mind? I understand that she looks grumpy and looks like she jumped out of the movie The Grinch Stole Christmas. She looks dead inside. Looks like she would bring the roaring. And that negative aura that she produces is exactly why she can't be the knight, because the knight has a cool aura, something that grumpy old lady does not possess. Her evidence is held together with glue, glitter, and pure delusion. They both have swords? Is that the best you got? They both have antlers? Nonsense, irrelevant. And she isn't the only one who has antlers. Rudy does as well. Why can't he be the knight, huh? Why not? Oh, that's right, because he's dying. And unless he's faking his illness, there's only one true answer to who the Roaring Knight is. And they've been staring us dead in the face since the dawn of time. They're legendary, they're boney, they're beautiful. With the wind blowing through their hair and the sun shining on their skin, it's none other than the great Papyrus. There is a reason that I mentioned the knight having to be cool, based on the Sans dialogue that he has during the scene at Groby's. So, what do you think of my brother? Make sure to select the cool option or else get thrown into the sun. Of course it's cool. You'd be cool too if you wore that outfit every day. He'd only take that thing off if he absolutely had to. Oh well. At least he washes it. And by that I mean he wears it in the shower. Papyrus's name on Undernet is Cool Skeleton 95. Point being, if the knight wants to be feared, they have to be cool as well. And Papyrus in Undertale is referred to as cool by Sans, so at least that counts for something. Not to mention, the knight and Papyrus have identical body types. If you placed Papyrus's head on the knight's body, it would not look unnatural at all. If you tried to make the knight's current body look like Papyrus's body in Undertale, it would look identical. It would look perfect. The knight's body does not look like a normal entity at all. It looks more like a skeleton. And notice how the only appearances of the knight have been in the same attire. As we established, Papyrus is said to never take off his costume. So therefore, this must mean he's the knight. Oh, what about the antlers, I hear you asking? Why would you even ask such a thing? Papyrus having antlers is such an iconic part of his character. It's literally built into his character design since his first appearance in Undertale. How could you guys forget something as basic as that? You clearly don't know what the main theme of Deltarune is called. In Undertale, Papyrus is trying to be a royal guard. The royal guard in Undertale are basically knights. They all wear knight armor. And the Roaring Knight is obviously also a knight. They even knight Chris if you manage to last long enough to get the Shadow Crystal. Notice how the knight flies. Well, Papyrus can also fly. We see him do so right before we start making our way into Waterfall. And when Flowey shows up at the end of Pacifist and restrains all the main characters, he restrains one of Papyrus's legs so that he can't fly away. Flowey is stated to have seen everything, so we can assume that decision was intentional, based on said knowledge. And then we have the ball the knight turns into. I see some people suggest that it resembles a baseball. Ludicrous, I tell you. That's the biggest load of horseradish I've ever heard in my life. If anything, it looks more like a meatball. Now, why do I bring this up? Of course, Papyrus makes spaghetti. What does spaghetti usually come with? Oh, that's right, meatballs. That's right, folks. Goddamn meatballs. Oh, I could use one right now. So savory, so juicy, so delicious. Want to know why we haven't seen Sans' brother? Want to know why Sans asks us to hang out with his brother the next day, only to then say, when that day arrives, that it can't happen? Well, strap in, folks, because this one is a doozy. Sans is in on the knight's activities, and he wasn't genuinely asking Chris to hang out with his brother. It was another joke at the expense of Chris, just like the idiot baby one that Sans makes because as shown in the Holiday Manor sections of Chapter 4, Chris does not look happy with their current situation of being forced into assisting the knight. And the fact that Chris deliberately lured Undyne into the Dark World so that the knight would take her instead of Toriel, and you can't say, oh, Undyne was always the target. Nah, because the knight attacks the church, exactly where Toriel should have been had it not poured rain. Unlucky. So Chris clearly hates working with the knight. Chris knew the knight needed a Lightner sacrifice, and they didn't want it to be their mom. So they lured Undyne into a trap, which makes sense why Chris was so hell-bent on telling Undyne about Dark Worlds in both chapters. Chris clearly hates working with the knight, and Sans being in on it makes a joke about that. And this is supported by the fact that when Sans asks the question, no matter which choice you make, Sans still says thank you for agreeing to hang out with his brother. Like you don't have the choice. And Sans is making fun of that. Like Chris has no choice but to work with the knight. After all, we know Chris made some sort of promise that has locked them into this certain situation. And the reason that Sans says that they will have to meet their brother another day, that line isn't directed at Chris. Nah, it's directed at us. Who do we meet at the very end of Chapter 3? And who is the main antagonist of the following day? Oh, that's right, the knight. Definitely not a coincidence. Sans working with the knight, and by proxy Chris, must mean that Sans has the same meta-knowledge that he does in Undertale, considering the knight shares similar features to the mystery man many of us believe to be Gaster. So it's likely that Gaster created the knight. He's the one who speaks directly to us multiple times throughout the game. It's highly unlikely that Sans doesn't have similar knowledge to his Undertale self, or doesn't know that Chris is possessed based on his current connections in the story. The knight sharing similar features to the aforementioned mystery man is even further proof because that mystery man resembles a skeleton. Gaster is named after a font, just like Sans and the good old Papyrus. So Sans, being in on the plan, working with the knight, would also have a connection to Gaster. And this is where Sans got the Gaster blasters. It was a gift from Father Gaster, as a means of protection if Chris ever even thought about disobeying the orders of the knight, and started lashing out on the people associated with the knight. And that, my friends, is why Sans began to insert himself into the life of Chris, to keep an eye on Chris, to make sure they stay in line. Their ketchup bottle in the fridge, a camera. There's probably even more in the house. My evidence for this? Sans and Alphys were friends in Undertale. Alphys had cameras all over the place, watching Frisk as they made their way through the underground. Now, in Deltarune, Sans and Alphys don't appear to be super close. However, some things never change, like Asgore's pathetic nature. So we can assume that Alphys has cameras all over Hometown. It's built into her DNA. Sans knows about this, getting the knowledge from Gaster, and asks Alphys to build him some cameras. Her knowledge about building cameras coming specifically from camera building anime. Crazy, I know. Also, Gaster has knowledge of the future due to him being broken across space and time, or split across space and time. Sans controlled the goddamn weather to make it rain so that Toriel would be forced to enter his shop before she got to the church. You think that's a stretch? Really? What about the flavor text in Shiren's battle about Sans selling tickets made of toilet paper? Sans is explicitly mentioned in Waterfall, a place full of water. Still think that's a stretch? What about the phone call you can have with Papyrus? Where are you? I hear water. He connects the sound of water to toilets as well. Toilets only being the norm in Deltarune's world. But I bring this up because it's a location where water descends from the heavens. This isn't even the only reference Papyrus has to water. Don't let a body of water determine your self-worth. It's too cold to swim in the river, unless you have a waterproof sweater. A corridor filled with water. All of these references of water have to mean something, and it all points towards the idea of Sans controlling the water, which Papyrus recognizes instantly, and it leads him to ask that question. Not to mention Sans also has a stand in Waterfall at the start of Waterfall. It's the only explanation. Another point is the fact that Papyrus doesn't even seem to be home in Deltarune at the end of Chapter 4, allowing Chris to peer in to the quiet, empty house, despite the door being locked usually. Both brothers out, doing their own thing, and haven't made it home yet after the events of Chapter 4. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Papyrus very clearly wanted Toriel, so it doesn't Sans manipulating the environment so that Toriel is forced to engage with him go against his brother's plans? And to that I say yes, it does. Sans' main priority in Deltarune, despite him being involved in the Knight's plans, is to have fun. It's why he decides to dance with Toriel. He didn't have to do that, but he did anyway. He also doesn't seem to notice or even really care about the discomfort that is clearly visible on the faces of Chris and Susie when they come home. So that desire for fun results in the messing with his brother's plans. But moreover, the Roaring Knight obviously wants to cause the roaring, as their name implies, and the roaring is said to occur if too many fountains are open at once. Now, I believe the roaring will probably result in the several dark worlds overlapping with one another, which is why the Darkeners will turn to stone, because they won't belong anywhere if the dark worlds are overlapping. This makes the most sense if the roaring is caused by too many dark worlds being open and existing at the same time. This idea sounds appealing to Sans, as he's definitely aware of dark worlds considering who he's involved with. The idea of the entire world becoming a game sounds appealing to him, which most certainly plays into the Knight's plans. How ironic, considering where Sans is at by the time we meet him in Undertale. This is a Papyrus that's alone in the dark, and if he's alone, then he will drag everyone down with him, so that he can have friends with him in the dark. All of the things I mentioned are here to build parallels between the Knight and Papyrus, to foreshadow the reveal of Papyrus being the Knight, to remind us of Papyrus. The similarities between the two cannot be understated. We are meeting a Papyrus who lacks anything that made him likable in Undertale, a Papyrus that has been drowning and stewing in the dark for too long, a bottomless pit without any real friends to lift him out. Hello everyone, my name is Ninja Noodle Nick from the thing you just watched. I hope you enjoyed that video and found it entertaining in some way. And to make it this far, why not consider leaving a like? It only takes a second and it helps me out a ton. You can also change your mind anytime you like. While you're down there though, I know a large portion of people that watch my stuff aren't actually subscribed, which I encourage as I have a lot of cool theory, analysis, and joke videos, like this one actually, that you guys definitely aren't going to want to miss. And drop a comment down below letting me know what you guys thought of today's video, as I love reading what you guys have to say. If you want to watch more stuff like this one, there was a Spamton one that I made. I think it's called Spamton, Why Spamton Did Absolutely Nothing Wrong. Just a fun little exercise. There's a one that I did parodying theory videos. I think it's called Sans is Gaster or something like that. And one I did recently was ranking characters who can survive Asgore's truck. But I also do more serious videos. Like I did one where I argued that Des is the Knight, who the Angel of Deltarune is, stuff like that. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff. I'm not just a one-trick pony. So feel free to check out more of my stuff if any of that stuff interests you. Before the video ends though, this is more for the people that watched my Sans video that I made a while back. If you haven't watched that yet, you can click off now and go watch that if it interests you. I not only argue why Sans is definitely from Deltarune's world, but also explore the differences between Undertale Sans and Deltarune Sans, and sort of explore how he changed as a character basically. But yeah, I saw some comments on my last video that asked me, why I didn't address the fact that Papyrus doesn't bleed, and that is a valid concern. To be honest, I didn't include it in the video because I did not have an answer for it. All I can say for sure that Papyrus is definitely not from Undertale's world, which I can say with chest. I have a few reasons for this, the first of which being the Mantle game, which mirrors and parallels some of Undertale's No Mercy route. There are enemies in the game that resemble every main character from Undertale: Toriel, Asgore, Flowey, Undyne, and Alphys, with two notable exceptions. There is no enemy that resembles Sans or Papyrus. There are no skeleton enemies in that game. This game being a huge reference to The Legend of Zelda. Like the Stalfos are iconic enemies of not even just the Zelda franchise, but gaming in general, You could show a random person on the street a picture of a Stalfos, and they would clock it instantly, even if they weren't big Zelda fans. So the fact there's no skeleton enemy at all, not for Sans or Papyrus, is just really strange. Then we have to mention the Snowdin shopkeeper, who says this about the Skelebros. You want to know what to do here in Snowdin? Gruies has food, and the library has information. If you're tired, you can take a nap at the inn. It's right next door. My sister runs it. And if you're bored, you can sit outside and watch those wacky skeletons do their thing. There's 2 of them, brothers I think. They just showed up one day and asserted themselves. The town has gotten a lot more interesting since then. There's 2 important key things to know here. The first of which, Papyrus has not lived in Snowdin his whole life. This is supported in one of the interviews with Papyrus, where he was asked how was his life before Snowdin, and he says there was green grass before being cut off by Sans. But I wanted to use actual in-game evidence to support this. But this interview does suggest that Papyrus is meant to be seen that way, and is Toby's intention, given he wrote the dialogue, of course. The other thing to note is the fact that Sans and Papyrus are not stated to have shown up in separate pairs. There's no speculation of like, first Sans showed up and then Papyrus. They are lumped together as a pair, as a package deal. The Snowdin shopkeeper says one day they showed up, and the town has gotten a lot more interesting since then. There's not one moment where she implies that they showed up at separate times. She speaks as if they showed up together. So despite the oddity of Papyrus not bleeding, I believe that he's still from Deltarune's world, or at the very least, just isn't from Undertale's. I do make it a point in my Sans video that it's possible that not all monsters bleed in Deltarune. We see Susie bleed, but it's doubtful that someone like Napstablook bleeds, for example. But I don't know why this would be the case for Papyrus, considering he and Sans are brothers. They aren't implied to not be related, so in theory, their bodies should function the same or similarly. Obviously, this could be revealed that they're not actually brothers later down the line, but right now there's no real implication of that. There's probably some information we currently don't have though. It is possible for it to just be an oversight, but there's 3 chapters of Deltarune left, so there's still time for us to get a logical explanation for why Papyrus doesn't appear to bleed. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, because this does have me stumped. Anyways, that's all for me. Thank you guys for the support I've been getting recently. It means the world to me. You guys don't even know. I will see you guys in the next video coming up next Monday as usual if all goes well. Anyways, don't forget to take care of yourselves. Peace.